create new, and then device, we'll use MacBook Pro. Microphone, yeah, I'm pretty sure that, yeah, that's what I had to do. Hello, hello, hello. Create new, and then, yep, that's it. When you hear start, okay. You start hearing me talking. Okay, we'll just have to redo the whole thing, Carlos.
Really sorry, but bear with us.
But we'll go a little faster this time. Okay. Cool. All right. Let's do it. All right. So, hi everyone. This is our second time. Maybe we should just cut this in the actual video. But welcome to our fifth and final Dev Community Meeting. Woo! Yes. If you haven't signed in yet, if you're online, then there will be the QR code. I guess there should be one if you see it on the live stream. My name is Azhar, and I'm joined by.
I'm Kunza and Azhar.
And we will be teaching the Room database today. So let's just jump right in. What we'll be doing today.
Yeah, so today's agenda is basically we'll be learning what is the Room database and what's the difference between the Sqlite database versus Room database and components of Room. Apart from that, we will be seeing how you could use it in code and in Android, and what kind of applications you could actually use this database for.
Yep. So, but before we jump into that, I wanted to share with everyone, we at the Google Developer Student Club, we have officially opened up our applications to join the core team. So what is the core team? So you see.
Sorry, how do you make this?
Just turn on your volume.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, that's no problem. But yeah, so the core team is a group of individuals that help. So every little part that you see from us, like whether it's regards to our marketing or our events, the behind the scenes, that is the part of the core team members. So Kunza and I, as mobile development tech leads, we are core team members here at GDSC. And we are joined by many other different types of positions. For instance, there's a program manager who oversees us. Her name is Paulina. Hi, Paulina. She's awesome, and she helps oversee and takes care of if we have any issues, she helps us take care of those. And there's an event program manager that helps run events. We have like a marketing team as well that helps put up all the beautiful flyers they see around campus. And we have ourselves as tech leads. So tech leads, our goal is to teach bi-weekly workshops, and we help within our field, Android development, we help students who are interested in all sorts of levels fuel their passion for Android development. And if you would like to become a tech lead for mobile development or for any other community out there, whether it's web development, artificial intelligence, interview training, game development, or start your own community, you can by applying to this link. Go to fio.edu/core team app. And I would like to mention that if you would like to be a tech lead, all you need is the passion. And if you to be for that field that you're going into, whether it's game development, whether it's mobile development, even if you don't know everything, or even if you know just a little bit, that's fine. Learn as long as you go. This is the perfect teaching opportunity. As Kunza and I could tell you, as we have experienced over the course of this semester, our Android skills have grown tremendously. Thanks to this position.
And in any case, if you guys are interested in applying for mobile tech leads, it doesn't have to be Android specific. If you guys are interested in iOS or a cross-platform like Flutter, etc., right? You can apply for those too. We liked Android, so we applied for Android.
Yeah, and that's all there is to it. Let's get started.
Alrighty. So Room database, right? So Room database is an abstraction layer on top of the Sqlite database, which allows us to actually use that specific database to its full to its fullest, basically. What it helps us with is whenever we are dealing with the database in itself and database operations, it's very easier to use it rather than like if we were to go with like Sqlite database and use that. Now let me tell you the difference between the Sqlite and Room database. So as you can see, there's some points there which says that Sqlite is actually not it doesn't help you with compiling the compile time check for the Sqlite queries, whereas Room specifically does go through the compile time checks for the queries.
So what that essentially means is that there's compile time and there's runtime. So before, so while the code or your compiler is essentially reading your code to see if there's any errors or to see if there is any, typing errors or anything that the compiler can easily check. That's not necessarily like a logic error. Anything that's the compiler can catch. Right, that will happen with Room. Whereas with Sqlite, that will be only checked, if you visibly see it yourself. So, therefore, that means that Room allows for you to catch errors faster, and it's cleaner. It's a cleaner way of checking whether if you have done is right or not.
Yeah. Apart from that, if you want to update the database or change the schemas, it's very difficult to do that with the Sqlite database. But whereas Room database is kind of built in a way that's super easy to do it with migration of like various classes. Another thing which is a huge difference between these two databases is that Sqlite doesn't work with live data, whereas Room works with live data. Now, what is live data? It basically holds all the data needed for the UI. So what does that mean is, for instance, if you have your application running, right, and whatever you do within the lifetime and whatever status changes you make, Room within the live data is what captures it all and keeps it stored in it. So it basically deals with everything to do with UI and the data and the live data that you're used within the UI, which is a difference that Sqlite database does not do. Alrighty, so the components of Room, before we actually move into using them in the actual application, there are two basic components, which is entity and DAO, which is data access object. So entity is basically what represents the table in our database. Like every database have tables in them, and as you can tell, entity is what access that. And data access object is for every entity a interface is needed to contain the functions for accessing the database, right? That essentially means that Room uses it to issue queries from the Sqlite database. So Room uses the data access object to get stuff from the Sqlite database. All right. So this is kind of similar to what I just told you about entities and data access objects and the Room database in itself. It kind of represents in a more visual way of how it works and what I just said. So you guys can look at it, and this is the exact same concept that we'll be using for the application today and explain it. All right. I think the next slide is okay.
I think next slide's me. Yeah.
But not yet, guys.
That was it. See ya.
All right.
Yeah.
So we will be showing you guys the application from Android Studio, and we will be.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But before we start with my part, does anyone? Do you have any? Carlos, do you have any questions for Kunza?
Questions
Or
regarding the
chat?
database?
Does anyone have any questions?
Does the chat say anything?
I'm trying to.
I don't know which one is it.
Just give me a second. Okay. Let's see. Chat have anything? Nope.
All right. Awesome.
Yeah.
So,
Cool. So
we're gonna move on to the Android Studio
yeah.
and the application in it, and Azhar will break down the code and explain it to you. And
Yeah.
we'll be using all the components we just spoke about in the slide earlier. Awesome.
Yeah. So yeah. So thank you, Kunza, for that. And yeah. So now that was a theoretical kind of overview of a room. Now we'll dive into a practical application of sorts. So just to go over very just to get like a basic overview of room and everything that it has, of what we'll be building. For those of you that joined us last semester, you all might. Why does it keep disconnecting? It's so weird. But essentially, what we did last semester, for those of you that were following us, we had provided after our workshop something called Code Labs that will allow for you to get a practice of what we were teaching at that time. Thankfully, Google has Code Labs for all sorts of different topics, and one that they have one for is Room. So for today, they give like a very good overview of how Room works and then helping us build a sample application to show us what Room does. So we'll be kind of following along with it today. So for those of you that will be following along, it'll be, let me see, mobile dev, we'll be posting in chat. And it will be in the description for this video today. But other than that, so what will we be building today? We'll be building this from scratch alongside with the Code Labs. Is essentially this application, where in this application you're given a list form, and within this list you'll be able to, if you want to add a word to this list, you could press on this floating action bar button, and it'll take you to another activity or another page of sorts, where within that page, it will allow for you to type in a new word, save it, and which gets saved within our database, and it'll take you back to the original page where you'll see that word added to this list in the alphabetical order. And it is case sensitive, so say that you have a capital H, hello, and a lowercase h, hello. The capital, I believe, will come before the lowercase, but we could test that when it actually comes. So what you need for this tutorial is the Android Studio, and will be helpful for testing for later is an Android device or an emulator. So, yeah. So if no one has any questions, let's dive right in. So, yeah. Wait, is there an at from the mobile dev chat? Just checking the messages for a second. So why is that FIE Wi-Fi always so slow? And that disconnected too. This room is falling apart. Done. The code lab? Okay, no problem then. Yeah, we'll still try to see if we can keep it streamed, but other than that,
Whenever it comes up, I'll be able to
Okay, perfect. Yeah, just in case. That's fine.
Okay.
Cool.
Sweet.
So let's dive in a little bit. Okay, so for the second page, they go into a little bit using architectural components. So this is essentially the same thing that Kunza had shown earlier, where, right? So if you all remember from our last, no, not our last one, the one before, where we were building where we're using retrofit, we were introduced to a concept called MVVM, model, view model, and model, or MV model, view, MVV, view model. Yeah. So yeah. So essentially, from what we see here, if we take a look at what we have, so the view model is in the, okay, so I'll start from the top. So in terms of an application on how it runs, from a user's perspective, they see essentially what they interact with is with the UI, or the user interface. So they interact with that, and they can press buttons that interact with data. When they press something or they type in something that interacts with data, that will get triggered to our view model, right? So the view model essentially handles like functions, and it handles is basically the middle ground between working with UI and working with our data, wherever it's coming from, whether if it's an API, if we're working with retrofit, or that we're working with Room, if we're working with a database. That serves as the middleman between the two. And there will be something called live data, which we will be related to a view model as well, where essentially it acts as as it says here, a communication center between the repo and the UI. So essentially, it helps take care of our data and keeps updating the data from the database. So that's convenient for us. And which, from there, to connect to our database, it connects to something called the repo, where the repo will be related to like the entities and the DAOs, as from which Kunza was explaining earlier. Those directly interact with the database directly. And so the view model will call functions that will call certain functions in itself that connect to the database. And we see here the Room database, the DAO, the Sqlite, that's all here at the bottom. And it goes like top to bottom, bottom to top when accessing information. It gives some vocabulary here, which we kind of went over before. If anyone has any specific questions, let us know. Whatever. Cool. So, based on what we just described, let's see how that actually applies to what we will be building today. So, the main UI will be given from our main activity. And so what will be happening here? So we'll be having an observer. So essentially with this, this will essentially be just like our Recyclerview, and this will essentially be some of the, the UI elements that will be updated by our word list adapter. So that's related to actually getting the list from, that list will be updated from the word view model, which is part of our view model, which is part of the view model and down in the bottom. So which is over here, and that will be updated by our word repository, where the word repository has access to the database from Room, and essentially it uses the DAO or data access object, which is just a couple of methods that allows you to access the database. And yeah, exactly as that does, it'll go within Sqlite. So it goes within, takes like SQL functions and everything to get data, and that will be gone to the top, and we see that there's a new word activity attached here. All that is the next activity when we press that button to add a new word. So here so we'll follow along here a little bit. But this part's not too crazy. So what we'll do, I will create. Let's see. This one. So let's create a new project. So we'll go into new project, and we'll select an empty activity. And we'll create a new project, Word application. I'll change the package name for fun to GDSC. And I'm creating our Word application. And of course, as usual, we have our anime popping up to the top. Some things never change. And that'll take a second for us to load, but essentially we could just continue. Go ahead. Okay, so next step. In order for us to use Room, we will have to update our Gradle. And our Gradle is essentially where we keep access to our dependencies. And dependencies are essentially the imports that allow for us to access outside libraries such as Room. So let's see how exactly we could do that. So we'll go ahead and go into the we'll go into the module app build.gradle. So how you can find that by going to Gradle scripts module, and we'll go first into, okay, so there's compile options. Those are fine. Yeah, 1.8, 1.8, yeah, cool. Or to 1.8, or should I still add those? Let's see. I'm curious whether these are the same. Oh, they are. Okay. Oh, well, they're not. No, so it's fine. So make sure to update those. And we will be using lambdas, which is kind of a part of functional programming. It sounds difficult, but it's really not. We'll add that later on. And from there, what we will go ahead and do is, let me just make this a little bit bigger. Yeah, it's fine. Cool. So what we'll go ahead and do is that we have this dependencies here in the build.gradle. What we'll go ahead and do is that we'll update with the necessary dependencies that are related to Room. And so some of them will be related to Room, and then some of them, like I mentioned, will be part of the MVVM architecture. So, and these are actually made from, we don't have to make these ourselves, essentially, or build them completely from scratch. They're provided to us from Android, so such as like view model, live data, and common Java. Cool. I'm not too sure about that. And then testing. Yeah, I don't really care about the testing, to be honest, but UI, it seems like we'll be using constraint layout and material Android. For those that are curious what material is, it's a set of design guidelines from Google that allow for us to build clean UI in Android. So like you'll see, we'll be implementing this actually, this floating action bar button with the plus. Yeah, so to make our app the most up-to-date in terms of UI, we'll be using that. So, whoops. Okay, so let's just go ahead and we'll add all of these. So, implementation. Okay. So we'll do implementation there. App compat. Well, we already have that, so no need to add that again. So we'll add Room first. Make sure that syncs. What happened? They're essentially the same. Like if you see room version. Ran into an issue already. Let's go. First issue. Well, we will have to probably do room version. Okay. I think I could just do that here.
Oh, you have to replace the dependency block.
What happened? Yeah. Well, let's see. Android? Can I just put that in Android? Build.Gradle project. Oh, we add the version numbers to the end of the file. Okay, wait. Let me see. Okay, cool. Okay, yeah. So we basically we have to define those numbers ourselves. So yeah, exactly. So like it says like room version. That comes from us adding this line at the end. So yeah, called ext, sorry for extensions, and essentially just gives us the proper numbers that we'll be running our application with. Or more or less they should be up to date. We could always update them if we get more issues. Lifecycle, material, room. Yeah, room looks accurate, 2.3. So yeah, you could put that in the other build.Gradle. So we were first an app. Now we had to go quickly to the project. Then, like this, which you can find here, and input that there. So yeah. We'll just add the rest of them now. Anything related to UI, like material and constraint layout. Although,
You don't have to like pick and choose. It says you just replace the whole block with everything that's there.
you know what? I mean, for the sake of the time. Yeah, so we could just sync that. Hopefully that just works. That might take some time since we added multiple of them. Oh, perfect. Okay, so cool. So, and then also, so once you put those in, make sure you sync them, and now we have all the necessary libraries accessible to us to work with. So now, let's jump right into Room. So, essentially, if we take a look back at the original, right? Realistically, what do we have here in terms of data? Well, we have basically one entity, which is a word. And a word is made up of what? Well, a word, right? Which is essentially like a string of characters. So if we see then how that translates into creating our entity, right? So we have our word, and if you break it down conceptually, it makes sense. So you have access to, a word, right? So it has access to a string, which is the actual word itself. Imagine you have a word like object, which is made up of a string of a word, right? So when you create a word, you set essentially, you set the condition, or you set the entity for the word to this here. And if for when we start putting all the list of words here, we will need to be able to get we need to be able to get the actual word from like our word object or the string. So we have to create a method therefore to be able to get that. So if we go back here. So let's go ahead and do this. So we'll go into our project, we'll make a new Java class, and we'll call this word. And we'll define all of these files, or the entities for this file. So we'll create this actual string object, and right, so that's accessible. That's only accessible there, and yeah, so we'll make that private, which will become accessible when we give the public method getWord. So we'll do public word string word this word equals word I guess. I will put in this annotation non-null, because in order for you to make a word, you will need to provide a string to be able to make that. So it should never be null, and then we'll make the getter method for the word. Like that, we could access it. So save that. Now we'll use this. So this is essentially a mock-up for us, right? This is creating a Word object. The model. This is creating a Word model for MVVM. Haha. And now we will connect this with Room. So we can actually, and all you have to do, if you want to use this, you can, how Room works is that it uses annotations, and annotations are just, you see the @ sign in front of them and you write something, that has connections to actual backend code that allow for you to just write one line of code that does a lot of things in the background. So this is what we'll do. So we created this object here, and we will therefore create this schema or this entity for this word. If we do entity, and we already we have access to the Room library from importing our dependencies, so we could just do this entity. So if you all are aware, in databases, they work by database, right? Like they work by having tables of information that relate to other tables, where you can access a list of data, right? Tables. Like something like this, right? Like this could be for like a whole company where it has staff, customers, all of these, and where a table is one of these blocks that has these decorations like ID, name, last name. But for us, we're only going to need one thing or two things. Essentially, we'll just need the word. We're not even going to reference to an ID. Like we're just going to be sorting through. It's going to be super simple this time around. So with that in mind, so we'll be creating our table here. Yes, so we have our class here, entity, and we'll give this table name. Yeah, we'll just do it here, word table, and go along here. And okay, so this is something important. So this is telling us that we have something called a primary key. What essentially is a primary key? It allows for you, essentially, this data with a primary key makes this the main reference that distinguishes it between other objects in your table. So all we're saying here, when we give this annotation for primary key, is that we'll be using the word itself, the string, to differentiate between other objects in our database. Right? So we'll give these annotations here. So that. That's not null. And so this column, or this table more so, what does this have in our table? Well, this will essentially be a word, right? Oh, I put it for the wrong thing. Lol. Yeah, but we're just supposed to use the, yeah, there we go. There we go. And then, yeah, and then these are just the accessor methods. Like the constructor, and then the getter method. Yep. Yeah. So now we've created this, right? So this is, we created this table. And now we'll be creating the other part of it. So first we created an entity, and like Kunza had mentioned earlier, we'll be now creating the DAO, or the data access object, which allows for us, it's basically the last step between, you know, the actual room database, so our actual database, and the actual other code, right? So let's see here. Like we mentioned before, it validates our queries at compile time. So instead of us having to manually, you know, run into issues, like when the app is running, before it even runs, it will tell us, or Android Studio will tell us, hey, this doesn't make any sense. Can you not write something like this, you know, that could break our database? And it's like, cool, okay. And Room is super intuitive. Like from when you're inserting something into a database, it's literally insert, or you know, there's other annotations like it, like delete and update, which follows you know, kind of like CRUD, or you know, create, read, update, and delete. For the most part, like delete, update, but in, you know, instead of creating, it's inserting, right? So what will we be doing with this data access object, or the DAO? Well, we will do the following. We'll, like I mentioned before, all the words are in alphabetical order. So this will allow for us to just see the list of all the words by just going through, you know, accessing the whole table, and allow for us to do two actions, inserting and deleting. So let's go ahead and make our DAO. So we'll go ahead, create a new Java class, and this should be an interface, as we see down there, word DAO. And we'll list this with DAO here. And here, what is it telling us that we could do? Ooh. You all prefer light mode or dark mode? True. So contrast it with dark. Yeah. Yeah. So what we'll go ahead and we'll do is that we will first, yeah. So for each of these three functions, we'll create a function for each of these in our interface. So when it comes to an interface, we're not implementing these methods. These will be done within our view model. These are just the basic functions that, you know, we'll be listing out that allows for us to connect what they actually do within the Room database, and also likewise from our actual, you know, view model, right? So that allows for us, you know, to do these things. So like for instance, we have our insert here, insert, And if you're on Mac, if you want to get rid of these like these red screamings from from imports, it's Option Return, and I think it's Alt Enter for Windows. So just keep that in mind. Yeah, and what does this mean here on conflict strategy? This is essentially if there is a conflict between these two words, then if so, for instance, if there's two words like hi, right, and I want to put in another hi into my database, then it will just ignore it and it will just add it to our database, probably just putting it on the bottom or something. So it won't try to like delete one or do the other. Like you could handle these all sorts of different ways, right? On strategy, like if we were to do dot, replace, right? So you could replace the old entry with a new entry, or you could ignore it, or fail, abort. You could do all of these things, but we're just gonna ignore. It's not a big deal. And it's screaming. Oh yeah, because we haven't actually made our method. Void, for insert. And what are we putting in? A word. And next, if we want to delete, what we'll be doing here, so this screaming from delete from word table, that's actually SQL. For those of you that have taken database management, this might seem familiar, or it might not, but that's where that's coming from. And you could actually put in SQL queries here. Because again, this is related to actually working with your database. As you see here too, this is a classic. I'm not even gonna write that all from scratch. Okay. But this last part is us creating our list where we can actually access the whole database, or the table more so in our database. List, we gotta import that, and we'll call this method get. Let's see if I can get this right on the first time. Alphabetized. I got it. Yeah, cool. Words. Yeah, and that's what there is to it. So, does anyone have any questions? So we created our methods in our data access object, which we can connect with our room database, and which we can now connect with our view model. So let's see how exactly we can do that. So again, to reiterate, we have our view model, and if we want to now update our UI with the most current up-to-date information, there's three parts, right? There is our view, right, which is all the way on the top, which we can see, right? And what updates that is the view model. View model, tells it, okay, data, I want you to show this, or I want you to show that. And live data is updating the data that gets shown within the view. And then we're the model, which includes any sort of information relating to the database itself, right? So there's all this. So what we can do here, all that it is, so we have this list, and if we want this to be, if we want to implement live data to allow for us to update this data on its own, all we have to do is just wrap this this type, right, of this is right now just like a list, an array list of words. We just wrap that around with live data, because live data again is an architectural component from Android, a part of the Jetpack family, like there's Jetpack Compose. Room is actually a part of, I don't know, I can't believe we didn't mention that before, but Room is something that's a part of the Jetpack family. So yeah, and then like live data, a view model, all of these things are part of Android Jetpack. So all we did here, we just updated this live data. Yeah. So now we've added all of the work to be able to prepare for actually working with our database. Now let's add it. This code lab is so good. It goes into every little bit different detail, like what room is even. But essentially, we went through that already, so we won't spend too much time on that. It's just it allows for us to work with our Sqlite database essentially easier. It makes it more friendly for Android. But here, we will be creating a class, new Java class for our database. So let's create this now. Word database class. And yeah, so if we want to create this here, we first have to make this abstracted first, public abstract class. And this has to extend from room database. So this has to be an instance of our parent will be room database, and then its child will be what we're making now, word room database. My students, do you all have any questions thus far? Why are you looking to the other student? Right? You don't have any questions of your own student? Nay? Oh, this is the okay, yeah. So speaking Dutch in the programming class, yes. They do say actually like the Dutch people are good at programming. So that's good. Keep it up. What about you, other disciple? Any questions? No? Not at the moment? Okay, fantastic. Chat doesn't have anything either, so but yeah, also if you want to play like metal music or something, we could change the music. That's just like the default, but yeah. So, but anyway, if you guys don't have any questions, that's cool. Yeah, there's all of this boilerplate kind of here. All that's really important to us is public abstract word DAO, which essentially allows for us to, so this is the methods that we'll be using with our database, right? So we created this just now, word DAO, and it has our insert, delete all, and get alphabetized words. So we want to make sure to have a reference to that when communicating with our database, right? So, public word DAO, right? And I'm not going to type all of these out, but essentially I'll explain that. Okay, so yeah, these are just some boilerplate things you kind of have to do if you want to create this database. Like for instance, this is creating an instance of this database, which just tells you whether we have created a database or not for it, like which comes down here. If the database is null, then we make a database. I've never actually seen private static volatile. Volatile means that there will be one variable for each object. Oh, makes sense. So that's essentially saying like this is there could be only one object for this. But remember that static can be accessed within all of the classes for a specific project. But when you create volatile, there's only one instance of it. So yeah. And then threads, so there's some kind of multi-threading happening here to create this in the background. And the rest here is essentially creating our room database if there isn't a database already. So with that in mind, oh God. Let's just import all of that. Instance, I made instance, no? Instance. No, yeah, no, I forgot to put instance here. No, that's why. Yeah, that's why. I knew I forgot something. Yeah. Cool. Just to make this a little bit. Oh. Whoops. Oopsies. Let me see. Let me open it on this one. Projects. We can't have it on here. This is gonna get copyright striked. Hopefully they shouldn't have heard that, but although it is right next to the what do you call it, the speaker here, so it's very likely. But you know, that's cool. That's fine, I think. Hopefully we're not breaking too many laws. It's already over.
Yeah, it's already over.
Dang. We might have to find a new platform to do our, you know, this might be the end of the GDSC YouTube channel.
It's Google.
They should be able to put in a good word for us, right? Yo, I wish. Yo, I'm down the Twitch stream. Let's go. I'll count from 1 to 16 figures. Or 16 million. No, not 16 million. It was 16 zeros, so. I heard that'll take like a couple years. Watch him. In the room? Yo. What up, fellow roomanite? Do we have any room enjoyers here? Yo. Did I forget the database tag? The most important tag? Let me see. Where? Oh, oh Lord, I did. Thank you, Carlos. That's our most valued member right there. Our most valued student, MVS. Thank you. Let's go. It said for us, if you got errors, no, we don't need to clean it. I think it's fine. Save. So, okay. So, cool. So next we'll be creating what's called the repo, and it allows for us to essentially take access to our DAO. And if we had like an API, then you know that's cool. But it allows for us to just access these everything easier. So like you all might remember that, like yeah, the repo is on the bottom here, right? Yeah. So repo is essentially, that's what you use. It is your gateway into everything else. Like if you have your API or your database. So we'll just do that. For future applications, if you create it, you might have more than just a database. You might have an API, if you're using with retrofit. So it's a good practice. You know, that's all we're all about here. Good practices. Because we're trying to help you all get a job, right? So let's make it. So We'll make a new class, word repository. It's 7:20 almost. Nice. Yeah. We'll wrapping up in a little bit. This doesn't have too much left, so yeah. So exactly. They give us an accurate timeline, right? But yeah. So what do we have here in our repository? So we have the DAO and the live data that we would work with. So let's put that in. In order to unit test, we're not doing no unit testing. That's a little above our scope for this workshop. So we won't worry about having to remove application. But yeah, so we have to essentially, as our constructor, we kind of have to make a reference to this word repository. So we give, the database, we give a database a value, and then give the DAO a value, and all words a value. And where the application is the current application we're working with. Let's see. Since we're working with a database that's usually like in the background, there's you all might have mentioned that we've had to implement some kind of threading or multi-threading for our application. But that essentially allows for us in the background to be able to do some of these tasks, like like for instance here, like inserting. We don't want as we're putting in a word. Like as we say, like we type in a word like "Hi Carlos," right? I mean that's not a word, but that's something, right? It's a string. As we put that into our database, we have two functions happening at the same time. One is our data, our UI actually updating that new word, and then one is actually the putting that word into the database. So therefore, as we mentioned here, we must call this on a non-UI thread, or else our app will throw an exception because you're trying to do two things at the same time. So therefore, inserting a word must be, we'll do that. And which essentially, we're database, right? So it's calling here this write executor. Right, that's just connected with the threads, and then which allows for us to where we access our DAO, our data access object, which again is here for reference. As we get the SQL call for actually accessing the database, and then putting in our word, and then when we want to access all of the words, we access our live data, and then get the list of the words, which is updating the words, and which, is getting all the words. Cool. Now that that's done, we have our last little part before we start updating then we actually get the UI. So this is the last technical part. Which is our view model. So again, view model, its sole purpose is to do two things: provide data to UI, and then make the or that's basically the main thing, providing data to UI. So it's the connecting between the two, and it's the communication center between the repo and the UI. Repo, database; UI, user interface. So whether you're using XML or using Jetpack Compose, that will be the UI. That's totally up to the developer in mind. So there's all of these here. Essentially, it's it makes it easier to update UI and update your classes. And then it dives right into the activity lifecycle, where, for instance, like on create, on start, all of these Android, at every point when the app is running, it's built in so that it automatically updates for you. So you write less boilerplate code and write less. It makes it easier for you for your data to get updated. But anyway, let's create this view model. So let's go in here, make a new, our word view model. And since this is part of a architectural concept from Android, we will get the Android view model. Excellent. And so this will give us a red error. And for anything where we have to implement a parent class, we will get a red error. So let's create this constructor with this. So automatically, this was given to us. And all that we need to do now is we need to get an access to our repository and the words, right? So private word repo, this again, where this is accessing the part of accessing the database, right? And gets the live data. Repository and word repository. And the actual words, live data words. That is it. Got confused for a second. Yeah, because these all look so similar. That's fine. Okay, importing. All words. Well, we will do that in a second. So now we will give our repo a value of creating a new application, and then and all words, the value of that will be exactly as it was from here, right? And word repository, you can get all words, so we'll be referencing that method there. So repository.get all words, and that's it for that, right? Then we'll make this method here that allows for us to actually get all the words, like here, and like we wanted to do an insert referencing the repository, and actually now we will be using that method within our actual other classes. So yeah, that's the view model. Now we have access to those methods. Let's go ahead and just quickly create our XML so we could actually create our view now. And I promise there's not too much more left to this. Once we create all the UI elements, we could put in some basic info, it's just UI stuff more or less for the end. And then, but the final part is actually connecting the view model with like the buttons and everything, but there's not too much left. We were here. It's okay. So speed running this stuff, this is just XML. But to quickly go through, this is, okay, so we have styles in Android, which you can access in res. Let me see, values, themes, color primary, or is this in colors? Or did it say values value styles.
So that's
Or do I have to create, or I think I have to create this. This is it? This is app theme? Okay. Okay, okay. Got it. Yeah. I think I could just okay. Yeah, cool. So we just add that to the bottom. So we call it app theme. Yeah, okay, yeah, that makes sense. Where our color primary is coming from, we could actually click into that, or we could see colors. Purple 200. Cool. So, also, we will. Okay. So, as we have this list, we want to show these, like how we did last time. We want to show. Well, this is a little bit different. From last semester when we created a Recyclerview, essentially allowing for us to, you have, essentially if you want to show a list of objects, you have something called a Recyclerview. So where that comes from, you have a list. It's made up of a bunch of tiny little views, and when you scroll through the list, those views are recycled with new pieces of information. So that's kind of why it's called a Recyclerview. But that's all you need to know, is that's just how you show a list. So we'll add our layout and new layout resource file. We'll call this we can make this as a linear layout, and then this will be essentially the item, Recyclerview item.xml. Let's go into code mode. Just paste that. Style word title. Let's see, word title. What if I just no, I do need these. But I'm wondering why it's not showing these. The style. I think I will have to add a styles. I think that's what I have to do. Styles. And then in styles, put this, right? Hmm? How do you write that line on Kotlin? That's a fantastic question.
There's already color library stuff.
I get it. I get it. I don't know. I think I will just comment this out. Or I will comment that out more so. Not to get too warped in with UI, what I'll just do is that I will yeah, I'll just do that. So we created don't answer it. I won't. Trust me, don't worry. I will not get to that question. You do not have to tell me twice. And you oomst. This will just be so we're here. So we created one item for our layout, right, for like the list, and then now we're creating the actual view for the page, which I'll break down a little bit, but you know, for the sake of time, to save everyone some mental sanity, big padding. What was big padding for them? Big padding. Big. But I don't have that dimension. Wait. Okay. I'll just make that 34 dp. That'll be huge padding. And add word, and we'll just make that add word. Yeah. So your floating action bar's appearance should correspond to the available actions. So we'll need to put a plus sign, because for now, what I think it has, it doesn't have anything. So we'll need to put that. So how we can do that? So we go into the project, go into our res, or wait, can you do that? File, new, vector asset. Oh. Vector asset, and we're looking for a plus sign, plus or add, yeah. And then so then in the floating action bar button, which we don't even have to copy paste all that, we could just add src to be the add, or I see add, and did I add the right one? Yeah. Yeah, we have a plus there. So with that, now we will be jumping into more of our view and just quickly putting in the Recyclerview. So we'll be making some, for more of a description on how to use a Recyclerview, if you check our API section from last semester where we built an anime app, we show how to go full in depth on how to make a Recyclerview. But for the sake of this, we will just, we'll kind of show a little bit, we'll show how to do it, but we won't be going too in depth into it. So we take this, we'll be implementing Recyclerview, text view, view, layout. And yeah, so essentially, but to go quickly into what this is essentially that's creating the code that basically gives you a canvas to put your list of items on, and with the list adapter, which we'll be creating afterwards, allows for us to put that list onto that spot where we will be showing the list of the elements. And finally, the list, it will be asking, okay, so you want to put a list, into the spot. What list will we be using? That will be where our live data is coming from, to show the full sorted list. So, to more or less wrap it up here, let's do word list adapter. It's our class. Okay, so we have a couple methods here. The actual adapter, on create, on bind. The only thing that's unique here are actually checking if items are the same. That's where we actually create a class within this this view holder, or this list adapter, that manually checks whether items are the same, and if they are the same, then we'll act accordingly. So then, now as we've done that, we'll jump to our main activity where most of the rest of the application will be handled. We'll be setting our value for our Recyclerview, and of our more or less setting the Recyclerview. Now, as we've created all the backend for the Recyclerview, and now we'll be let's see. Let's run this real quick, see if it works. Fingers crossed. Really, fingers crossed. Excuse me. Does anyone have any questions so far? Okay, if you want afterwards, we could take a look at it and see. No, this is a different app. That's a different app. Oh, there we go. The margin is a simple delimiter. What? Can't determine tag type for resources. I think I know where this is coming from. This is coming from themes.xml. Oh, yeah, thank you. See if that. Oh. Uh. Okay. Have the basics. So, remove these. Yeah, I think so. At this point, because I'm not using them anyway. Like,
Is it allowed to have like a resources inside of the resources?
yeah, that probably is what the issue is.
It's like,
My, it's gigantic, but yeah, it works. Hmm. Mm-hmm. The fab, floating action bar, or floating action button. Yeah, so I have a billion tabs. I got it. Okay. But yeah. Okay, so we've done this, I believe. Yeah, we've done all that. No, I think I skipped over one. Yeah. So okay, this is there's no data in the database. So this is saying that we can add some data from before. So if we want to add like hello world, then we could do that. You'll notice also, okay, so this is writing to the database, right? And we get instance of our DAO, our data access object, and this allows for us to delete all of the, clear the database from beforehand. So every time that we start the app, we get a fresh start. If we want to keep all the words, then we can, but not super necessary. But yeah. So we'll put this in our main activity. Clear up some of these for it to be super, repository. So we're just working with our main activity, right? As usual, we gotta take care of all the imports. Oh shit. Oh, didn't mean to cuss. I'm not supposed to do that. Instance. Can I import instance? Where's instance coming from? Did I forget to put it? Oh, that's supposed to go in its own activity. Ooh, ooh. You are so correct. I was like wondering like why, where is instance going from? I can't read. But yeah. So word room database. Yeah, that makes so much sense. Because you have instance. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, makes sense. Okay. I think this goes here. Cool. And then all we need to do is just add our new word activity, connect with the live data, and that's completely done. So we're almost there. We're really almost there. We'll be adding some strings to our project for our new word activity. It should be in strings. Where's values? Strings XML. So we see that we are given, this string for our word, save, word not saved because it's empty. So these will be some strings we could reference later on, so we don't have to hard code the strings. And we can use this color and colors XML, okay. We already have FFFF, but I guess they're gonna use white as a button label. Oh, that's where that comes from. Small padding and big padding. Well, big padding was supposed to be 16. I could change that really fast. So it actually looks like what it's supposed to look like. Padding. So I had put some padding that's 34, but it should not be that. It should be big. Well, let's keep that on the side. Yeah, or 60 dp. And for those of you who are wondering what dp means, it means density per pixels. Yeah. This doesn't have. We'll create a new activity. So this is for the final. This is for the page where we add the word. So we'll create an activity of new word activity. So that's being added, and it came with its own layout file, just convenient. Okay, this says for us to verify it, it's been added to the manifest. It does that on default, but yeah, new word activity. Don't have to worry about that. Close this. Okay, so I'm gonna close main. I'm gonna close dimensions. Yeah. So we'll open activity new word. Copy this code, which allows for us, it has a button, and then will have the edit text, which is, the text box for allow us to type in the new word, where we can save it using the button. Color primary. I don't have a color primary. I'm just gonna use. I'm just gonna use. You know what I'll do for the background? That's. Excuse me. The background. I'll just do color. The color palette. We'll just make it a nice dark pink or something. I don't know. Yeah, okay. And then, okay, we've added those, so that's all we should do for that database. For the new word activity, we just essentially give the values for the, what do you call it, the button, so that once we add when we click on the button, right, new word activity? Yeah, so once we click on the button, it'll allow for us to see whether if the text is empty from the edit text. If it's not, then we add the word. And we could send it to our database. No, it's been incorrect. There we go. For our last part, connecting the live data to our actual list. So we're gonna go back to our main activity because that's where we'll be showing the list of the words, right? So we'll be creating view model, and in the main activity, we'll be giving it a value of the view model provider, which allows for us to connect the view model class that we made with the view model. And with every time that the list changes, right, we will update the list in our UI. So that's exactly what this is doing here. So mview word model, word view model that get all words dot observe allows for us to update the list of the words. Okay. Okay, so once we've added the word, we should get a confirmation whether the word has really been added to the database or not. Toast. And yeah, I'm almost done. Okay, to finish it, that should all be what that is. And yeah, that should be it. Let's see if that works.
You can't find the file.
Oh yeah, okay, min height. It was 8 dp, so it's fine. We'll just manually do that. Let's see. Maybe there might be another one of those. I'm not sure. Oh, okay. Let's go. I wish I could make this a little smaller, but hey,
There it is.
there it is. Okay. Yeah. So there we did it. So so we see our list of words, right? And here's the best part. We'll be able to click on this button. No. We click on the button, it shows this, right? And here's the best part. They say, "Hi, Carlos." Save. It's added to our list. Yep. And if we were to put something to show that it really does alphabetical order, Azhar is added to the front of the list. And that's it. That's all there is to it. Yeah, thank you all. That was our. Yes, thank you all for coming. And yeah, I do want to say before we end the live stream, I do want to say one or a couple things before we end things off. Yeah, I guess in the live stream, just show us for a second. So yeah, well, I don't want to show that but here, but just to wrap things up. Remember, yeah, for those of you that are still watching us, we have our applications open for the GDSC. Thank you, yeah. We have our applications open for GDSC. Please consider joining the core team. If you have any questions, Kunza and I are always available for any messages or anything.
Or even if you want to say hi. You know.
Yeah, we're always here too. Yeah. Do you have any final remarks that you want to say? Is that it? That's it? All I
just
got.
want to say hi, Carlos.
Hi, Carlos.
Thank you for coming to all of our dev community meetings since pretty much last year.
Yeah.
Thank you. Such
Yeah.
a dedicated.
Yeah, and thank you for those that have been attending that, even if you couldn't make it today, even if you attended one workshop, whether it's virtually or in person, we appreciate all the love and we appreciate all the support. Mm-hmm. And yeah, this is our last dev community meeting as mobile dev tech leads. It's been a fantastic journey, getting to teach, Android, something I love to do. And it's something I really personally want to get more involved in. And, so I hope that our lessons have been informational for everyone. And it's been, not to get too sappy, but, because I had started this club back in 2020. And it's been amazing to see how the club has grown and especially how this mobile community has grown. Mobile dev was one of the first communities as a part of GDSC. And we were teaching Flutter, then we were teaching both iOS and Flutter, and then there was nothing for Android out there. But that's what we came to do for over this course of the year, and it's been a great success. We've had a lot of fun doing it, and for whoever takes it over next, wish you the best of luck with this community next semester. But until then, we're always here for you all. So always shoot us a message, or we'll be around. And yeah, thank you all.
Thank you so much, guys.